Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Xander Sprague.
Hello, Epic people, and welcome to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Xander Sprague, and today I am so excited to have Phebe Trotman join me. Phebe, tell us a little about who you are.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Xander, thank you so much for having me on the Epic Podcast. It is an honor to be here with you today. I'm super excited for our conversation. So I am basically a soccer player, former professional athlete, turned entrepreneur, author of Never Quit on a Bad Day, and just having a blast, really just learning and growing on this incredible journey that we're privileged to have in terms of life. And that really is in a nutshell sort of me. Obviously, we can unpack a lot of that. And it's just been a fun journey and continue to grow and learn and help people along the way.
Oh, that is so great. I am so excited. Now, I do have to ask, because I actually just yesterday released a podcast that I did with Angelina Anderson, who is the goalie for Angel City FC. And so where did you play soccer in college and professionally, and how long did you do that?
Absolutely. So I grew up here in Vancouver, Canada. So I went to university up here at a school called Simon Fraser University. And we played in the NAIA, which was a fun league to play in the sense that we played a lot of our games in the US. So had a chance to travel there. Then after university, had a really successful career as a university athlete. And then I played one season down with the Fort Collins Force. And then I played 5 or 6 seasons with the Vancouver Whitecaps when they had a women's team.
Cool. And now was that part of because I know there have been all these different iterations of women's professional soccer leagues and stuff. So was it kind of part of that?
Sort of, yeah. So it was part of a league called the W League, which at the time was the highest level of women's soccer in Canada and the United States. So it was part of that league.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yes, somehow I seem to get the goalies and professional goalies. So and did you when you were playing, did you ever play on any level for the Canadian national team, like U18, U20?
Yeah, no, I actually didn't. I actually didn't end up that. I played with a lot of teammates who played on the national team, however, I wasn't on that team.
Okay. So what would you say is one of your most epic or one or two epic memories of playing professional soccer?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've played on some incredible teams, learned a lot over the journey. It has, I have a long list of accolades in terms of team performance and personal. That being said, there's definitely been challenging moments. I mean, some of the most epic, wins we won in my last year at university with Simon Fraser. We won the national championship, and we actually played in the longest. This was back then when they had golden goal. So you just kept playing until someone scored. And
sudden death.
Yeah, so we basically played 5 overtime periods, so almost 2 full soccer games, and we ended up winning that game, and it was just, it was an incredible moment to.
You all must have been so tired.
Oh my gosh, tired and hungry. Like I literally went off for one of the overtimes, like inhaled a protein bar, because you're literally giving it. Every moment is just so precious. And because my first 2 years university, we lost in the final, and then the third year we didn't have a great showing, and then the last year we had a rocky start. We had some tough conversations. We turned things around, and so to come out on top, that was just, it was an incredible moment. And I can still see and feel like the teammates and all of us just celebrating when the ball went in the back of the net.
Definitely. And I'm sure I can imagine the nerves that you were having when they were coming towards you, and then you're like, just save the ball, do whatever, right?
Absolutely. I'm a striker, so I'm up front. So I actually was the one who scored the goal.
I thought you were a goalie. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, that's my bad. For some reason I thought you were a goalie, and I'm like, I was talking to another goalie, and
I was just thinking in terms of soccer players.
No.
I'm on the other end.
Okay, the other end, striker. Okay,
the striker. Yeah.
Okay. My bad. I don't know why I thought you played goalie, but
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
I saw soccer. I'm like, ooh, another goalie. No. Okay, striker. Oh, well, that's really cool. That is really cool. So what do you miss most about playing?
Well, actually, Thunder, I still play. Now, I don't play at the same level in terms of league that I used to play, but I do still play. What do I miss most about, playing in terms of that professional atmosphere and
Sure.
even university? Really, a big piece of it is just that focus in terms of like you're all in. Like that is what you're doing. You're committed to training hard. You're committed to your nutrition. You're committed to your sleep, your water, like giving it your all and really having that competitive environment where you're really working to be the best athlete and teammate that you can be for your teammates. And also to, you have that collective goal to win a game. And I still have that in terms of the environment right now as the team where we're all working to win a game. However, it's very different now in the environment that we're playing in, where we have careers, we have families, we have all sorts of things. So it's not that one track focus, if you will. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, there's so many great memories of road trips and just that competitiveness of wanting to be the best so that you can help your team win a game.
Definitely. Definitely. And so what epic journey are you on now?
Yeah, well, as I said in my intro, life is just such an incredible journey. And one of the things I encourage people listening, just be open to growing and evolving, to go from you playing sports at a high level. And then as an entrepreneur, I ended up building a business with a network marketing company still with that company now, 18 years of that. And then just most recently, the next epic step forward was releasing a book last year. Well, the first book of a planned book series. And it's interesting because, Xander, if you had asked me like 5 years ago, is writing a book on your goals? It really wasn't. However, I always encourage people to be open because on my heart for the last several years, I wanted to create something to help people and inspire them and really share some of my experiences as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, and life lessons to help people along their own journey. And a couple of friends of mine, when we were talking about kind of what's next, I said, I want to help people and inspire. And they suggested write a book. And initially I was a little hesitant because I was like, I don't know if that's the way I feel called to. That being said, I did want to create, again, something to help. And the month before that, I had an amazing honor. I was inducted into the Coca-Cola Sports Hall of Fame, and we had this induction event. And in that event, the interviewer asked me, what has sport given me? And I shared, just some of the life lessons and, the incredible high moments, some of which we talked about today. But I also shared the only reason I was able to have some of those incredible highs are because of the lows, getting cut from a team, sitting on the bench, coming back from an injury, pushing through all that to get to the other side. And then that's when I got really excited about the theme of the book, realizing how much it can help people. Even though the challenges may not be the same, the principles and what you can learn, you can apply to your life to help people get through those tough times as well.
Absolutely. And Phoebe, I just want to let you know that, if you had asked me in college whether I would write a book, I would have asked you, like, were you feverish? Were you delusional? Like in some way, and it still blows my mind that I've written 3 books and 2 of them have been, Amazon bestsellers. I never in a bazillion years. I'm a talker, not a type, but I am a firm believer that when you want to do something, you figure out the way that's going to work for you to do what you want to do. And yeah, writing a book it's so involved, and you got to find the way that is going to work for you, and also help find a team that you don't write a book completely by yourself, because once you put words down on paper, you want someone else to look at it and help you say, let's rephrase this, this paragraph or something, or it's not as, because in your mind it's super clear because you know what you wanted to say, but then someone else reads it and goes, I'm not exactly clear what you were saying here. So I totally get. I also really like what you said. I talk about it. My Epic Begins with One Step Forward book, that failure is part of the journey, and we can't go in and say, unless I can do it absolutely perfectly. As an entrepreneur, I know that I have spent money on tools that are great tools they're just not the right tool for me, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't, try that tool out. Or you just make a mistake. You try something and it doesn't work. And instead of going, oh, that's it, I'm not going to do it. Like, as you said, playing soccer, you get cut from a team. It is highly disappointing, failing. No one wants to go out and fail. But I do believe that it is part of our journey. There's going to be detours. There's going to be perceived roadblocks. Absolutely. I really want this, but I can't get there, But I think sometimes roadblocks are a mirage. We put them in front of ourselves. We tell ourselves what we can't do.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's to see how badly do you want something too, right? A roadblock doesn't have to be a dead end. A roadblock might be a little bit of a detour, or get over top of that roadblock too, right? So I think that's
absolutely. And sometimes it takes you a little while, because all the ways you think you'd get around, you can't. I know I was all ready to do so many things, and the pandemic hit, and I had to completely, I couldn't go out and give speeches because you couldn't leave your house. No. So it's like, all right, now what do I do? I don't know how long this is going on, but I can't just sit there and go, I'll just sit here. So yeah, absolutely.
And
so,
can I just jump in? One of the
absolutely
that's so powerful, because I actually have been writing about it in the next book in the series. Well, what can I do? And that's one of those things it's such a powerful phrase. And the more I think as people, we can embrace that, even when we do get hit with the roadblock, setback, whatever you want to call it, asking yourself, well, what can I do? And do that thing, right? Versus just being blocked. It's like, ask that empowering question, because when we ask ourselves that question, our subconscious now starts to go to work. It starts to think of things that you can do to help you. So I just wanted to highlight that, because
absolutely.
I know it's ingrained in you, because that's what you did. However, I just want to make sure listeners really get that, because that's such a powerful gem. And it's a question that when we can start asking ourselves. And also, one of the things I write about is like, can you be that person in your network that when someone comes to you and is like, well, I can't do this and I can't do this and I can't do this, can you be the person and go, okay, well, no problem. Well, what can you do? Can you ask that question as well too?
Right. And this, of course, I now have like 3 things that I want us to talk about in super. So the first thing is, in my book, I have what I think are 2 incredibly powerful words. Not yet. Phebe, has your next book come out? Not yet. Doesn't mean that it isn't coming out. It just means it's going to take some time. Did you make the team? Not yet. Doesn't mean that, because again, no is such a hard stop. Has your book come out? No. Makes it sound like it never will. But I love not yet. There's so many not yets, right?
Absolutely. It's a gem. It's a gem, right? Or just adding yet, even when people start to say, well, I can't, this pops in my head, someone at the gym, I can't do a box jump. It's like, add yet to the end.
Exactly.
Maybe you can't right now, doesn't mean you're not going to get there. So I love that, even in terms of an answer, not yet. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And to me, there's so much optimism that I'm working on it. I mean, it's kind of like if you asked a freshman in college, do you have your degree? Not yet. Why? Because there's a 4-year path that you got to go down. Are you a doctor yet? No, not yet. I'm getting there, right? And somehow people are like, oh, I get that, you're a freshman. Yes, of course, not yet. You don't get into university and then in September and October someone goes, do you have your degree yet? No. I mean, I got a long road here. The other thing was to say, we were kind of talking about roadblocks and detours and stuff, is in going about what you said, what can you do? I think psychologically, we all go down, we do something like drive to the gym or drive to work or something. And it's human nature to go, well, I know how to do this, and here's how I do it. We like structure. Human beings like structure. Makes us feel comfortable. We don't entertain that there may be alternate routes, detours that will still get us to our destination. Maybe prettier, might take longer, but until we're forced to do so. I know I used to work in the corporate world, and one day I couldn't go the two ways I knew to get home because there were big accidents and I had to take an alternate route. Found a completely different, much more beautiful way to get home, but I wouldn't have done it because I never entertained that there was a different way. So I work hard every day to remind myself there isn't just one way to do it. I don't know if you have children, but I learned with my children when they were in elementary school that there's more than one way to do division. In fact, there's 4 different ways that you could do, long division. I couldn't help them with their homework anymore. But my point was, I never entertained that. Sure, there are different ways to come to the same answer.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful. And one of the things that out of that is what's so important piece of it is you knew your destination. You knew where you were going. You were going home, right? And you couldn't get there the same way you always went. So you found it, or the second way, so you found another way. But there needs to be that clarity in terms of where are you headed. And that's one of the things that I talk about and teach people is like, do you know what you want to create in terms of what does a dream life look or dream day look like for you? Because if you didn't have a destination, in your case, home, well, you can just go a bunch of different ways because it doesn't matter, right? You're just going around in circles. And I think that's one of the things that there's different routes. And as I said, like for myself back in the day, it was like, well, I knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to inspire people. I wanted to encourage them along their journey. However, so I was clear in terms of what I wanted to, the end result, how I did it. That's where I was open to it. And so I just encourage people, you do want to know what is it you want to create? What are you looking to do and how you do that? That may take a different route. The destination, though, it needs to be clear too.
And a lot of the time on these journeys, we do need to just take that one step forward because if we make stuff bite-sized, it's much easier, right? I've been fortunate to run 4 full marathons. That's a really long way. If I worry, I know. I haven't run one in a long time, but yes, I did do it. So
you did it.
But if I worried about how I was going to be running mile 24 at mile 1, I can't do that. I have to focus on what's right in front of me. The same way that you as a striker, like, all right, in the last 5 minutes of the 4th quarter, and you haven't even kicked the ball off. You don't know what's going to go on. None of us do. And we get on the journey and we just start driving and say, what's that going to be like? I just got back from vacation. It was awesome. But I had no idea at the beginning how it was going to go. We don't know how. Did you get up today and go, I have got the answer to every single thing I will be asked or think about today? And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's what I loved about the name of the pod, like one step forward, because you're right. It does just start with that one step. And another thing, circle back to what you said about in terms of writing a book and having a team. It's like, we don't, everything is new, right? When we're starting something new, it's like, well, we don't know it in all the pieces. Like I didn't know, once a decision's made, then you take one step forward. And now as you start making those steps forward, you start to see other things that you didn't see before because you were back there. So it is that process of just continuing to take that one step forward. And that's what really grabbed me to the name of your podcast, because we do oftentimes think, well, I have to know all these pieces and I have to line everything up. And that's not necessarily how it works. It does just begin with that single step forward, do what you need to do, then take the next step forward, next step forward, next step forward. And there is clarity, again, when you know where you're going, where that end destination is, there's clarity that comes.
Exactly. Like I'll always talk about the marathon training, but I was handed a schedule that made it so much easier. It said, go run for 30 minutes, no problem. Now on Saturday, go run, 10 miles. I'm not saying the 10 miles was easy, but all I had to do was look at my schedule and go, oh, okay, I can do that today. And once I was done with that training. Right. I didn't have to keep running all day. I was like, I did it. And then I went on and did the other parts of my day. One thing that I talk about in the book, and you sort of referenced, and I'll just rephrase it, which is what I call the 97-3 rule, which is I firmly believe that 97% of our day is actually really good. And up to 3% isn't as good. Now, some days, obviously, you may have a really bad day and that it's more than 3%. But in general, when you talk about people, I can't, I won't do this, I can't. I'm like, what was your least favorite subject in school, Phoebe?
Least favorite, physics.
Physics. Okay. So how would you feel if you got a 97 on a physics test?
What?
Exactly. Exactly. You'd be telling everyone. Would you be focusing on the 3 points you didn't get? No. So seriously, it blows my mind that we, and I'm putting myself in there, okay, focus on that 3% that didn't go right and completely ignore the 97 that did go right. It's not to ignore the 3%, but it's like, let's keep it in perspective. I wanted to make this phone call. I didn't make it today. Okay, I'll acknowledge that. But I did get all this other stuff done, like do an awesome, podcast with Phoebe. So let's focus on what we did get right. Okay, we both woke up this morning. I am not trying to be modeling here, but that's a good thing. It's a good start. Here we are. We get to do this podcast. That's a great thing. So it's all of us are on this journey. We should remind ourselves of how much is going right, because I really believe so much more is going right than isn't.
Absolutely. And that's a choice, right? And I think it does,
Yeah.
it comes down to what do we want to choose to focus on. We can decide. And unfortunately, we live in a world that gravitates towards the negative. We're hit with negative influences all the time in terms of just around us. So we have to train our mind to look for those positives. We have to train our mind to fill it with more positive stuff so that, it's a process. Not everyone's going to have, depending on the environment, everything you grew in, what you're reading, what you're watching, etc., your default might be negative. How do you start switching it to positive, right? How do you start adding more inputs that are positive so that your default is looking at the 97, not the 3? Because there are so many things to be grateful for throughout the day, to celebrate. We all have wins. Like, I truly believe we're all champions. We're champions of our own lives. It's a choice, though. What do we want to choose to focus on? Do we choose to focus on, as you said, the 3% that didn't go right? Or do we choose to celebrate the 97 that did go right? And that's
Right.
what we get to decide every single day.
Absolutely. And it is a choice, and choice is so powerful. I think all too often entrepreneurs or whatever, we go down a path a certain distance, and then we're like, oh, well, I just got to keep going. If it's not working for you, you can choose to change. I know that I'll use running shoes. We could say cleats, okay, for you. Something that I'm sure you had a few hundred pairs of, even though you're like, I've always worn, and I don't know, I'll throw out Adidas. And here's this year's iteration of and you put it on and it's just not working. You have to keep wearing it, even though it's not. I'm getting blisters. It's squeezing my toe. No, you go, this isn't working. I'm not going to use this anymore. Let me go use something that does work. And I think all too often we get either pride or whatever. I've gone this far to write this chapter, and this chapter is just not going. Another choice. Maybe this isn't a chapter that you should be writing today. Maybe you're feeling more inspired to write the next chapter. So go ahead and do it. No one says you have to write it all, whatever. You write it however you want. Think about movies. They don't shoot movies in the order that we see it. Sometimes the last scene is the first scene that they.
And again, it comes down to choices, as you said, right? We have, and owning that and being okay with that, right? That sometimes things do not go exactly as we planned and scripted, and that's part of life as well. And it is okay part of it is being flexible and adapting to your environment, and then again, choosing how you want to respond to the situations that happen in life. One thing too, I just wanted to pop in my head, because it was such a powerful thing that you were talking about, is timing, right? You don't expect someone, a freshman goes into university and you're asking them about their degree right that day, because you realize there's time and there's a process. And when we can start to focus on the process versus just the result, then, and having consistency in the process, the result will come. But there's also a time, there's a season for everything, right? We don't, plant a seed and expect the tree pops up the next day. We have to water it, we have to garden it, we have to, tend to it. And so that's part of it. As an entrepreneur, there are those times and so if we focus on the process more so than the result, then you can celebrate those wins, celebrate the wins of the process, celebrate the win that you did pick up the phone call, celebrate the win, that you did the activity you needed to do to get the result that you're working toward.
Absolutely. And it's, again, structure, having a plan, but understanding that how you get to your destination, there may be a detour, and it may turn out to be a much better road that you're going down than you originally knew. But you got to be open that, I'm going to fail at some of this. I just learned a way not to do this.
Yeah.
The only things that we will ever fail at are the things we never try. Because, I can't run a marathon. I didn't do it fast, but I covered the whole distance. I got it done. You played soccer. You may be like, I will never finish in the top 3 of, I don't know what they call them in Canada, but I knew them as hurricanes or suicides or whatever.
Oh dear. Yeah.
I'm sorry for the flashback. You're like,
I know. I was like, Xander. Oh, yes.
I don't know. They have all different names, but they all have the same result of anyone who's ever done it. And if you don't know what I'm referencing, it's in soccer or basketball or any sport where there's lines on whatever your playing surface is. You start at one end, you go up to the first one, go back, go up to the second one, go back. They are a favorite conditioning tool of coaches, and they will gas you and you feel terrible, and
they're effective.
They are very effective
but yes.
And even in that moment of like that, I just can't do two more of these. I got nothing left. What you don't see is that it does actually pay off when you're in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know how our time went that fast, Phoebe.
Oh my gosh, already?
Already, I know. That's what happens.
Yeah.
On the Epic Begins with One Step Forward is we do take that one step forward, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God.
Look at where we are. Look at
where we are. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your awesome knowledge and your just awesome positivity. I so get it. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook and Instagram, and very simple, Never Quit on a Bad Day, as well as my website, neverquitonabadday.com.
Awesome. Well, I do want to remind my listeners that if you want to start your own epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. You can purchase one of the courses, and if you put in Epic Begins as a code, you'll get $50 off. I also want to remind everyone that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want. I'll talk to you next time.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward, at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Xander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Xander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.